today for our webinar. We'll be starting in a few minutes, so just giving some time for more participants to join. As we're waiting, we'll launch our first poll to get a sense of who is listening at the moment. So if you'll see on your screen, it's asking what type of organization do you work with. So if you can select one of the following. Well, thank you for taking the time to respond. It looks like a good portion of our audience is from First Nations administration as well as local and regional government, and we also have a few people from the nonprofit industry. So I think we'll get started now. Again, good morning and thank you for joining us on our webinar on training in energy efficient housing at Vancouver Island University. My name is Elena Chia and I also have my colleague Jim Vanderwall here from the Fraser Basin Council. As you can see on the slide, you can connect to audio through your computer or you can also dial in at the telephone number listed. So this webinar is part of our First Nations Home Energy Save program. Fraser Basin Council is working with First Nations communities and support organizations to reduce energy use, share success stories, build local capacity, and support economic development. We'd like to thank our funders, the Real Estate Foundation of BC, BC Ministry of Energy and Mines, BC Hydro, and Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada for their support in this program. You can see at the bottom of the slide our website for our program. Please visit our website for more information on learning and funding resources. Just to go over some webinar logistics, we ask that everyone keep their audio muted during the presentation to limit our background noise. If you like to ask questions, on our control panel you can see a questions tab. We'll save our Q&A until the end, until after the presentation ends. And you also have the opportunity to ask your questions verbally, and we can selectively unmute you for that. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, you can also type in your concerns in the question box, or you can send us an email at fraserbasin@gmail.com. So today's presentation on training in energy efficient housing at Vancouver Island University, we will have Amy Seabrook from BC Hydro to kick us off to talk about BC Hydro's role in this particular project, as well as some of the other important work they're doing in the area of energy efficiency.
Thanks, Elena. Hi, everyone. My name's Amy. As Elena mentioned, I'm a program manager in BC Hydro's Conservation and Energy Management Group. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about a project that we've been supporting for the past few years that relates to what you're going to hear more about today. So for the last 5 years, we've been supporting the First Nations Energy Efficient Buildings Policy Project. That work was largely facilitated and delivered through our partners at the Ministry of Energy and Mines. And it really focused on supporting First Nations in developing, adopting, and implementing housing policy in support of energy efficiency in their communities. And it also looked at how we could support better coordination between government agencies and utilities, again, in support of improved energy efficiency in First Nations communities. And so in the 5th and final year of that project, which is just wrapped up, we were really pleased to support a few specific activities, again, through our partners at the Ministry of Energy and Mines. One of those was working more directly with communities who are interested in developing energy efficient housing policy. And we were really pleased to see Seabird Island and Natalie Wooten both pass Band Council resolutions adopting energy efficient housing policies in their communities. We also helped to support peer mentorship and knowledge sharing through Fraser Basin Council's First Nation Home Energy Save program. So these webinars that you're tuning into, and I definitely encourage you to let others know about. And then finally, the development of educational materials on energy efficiency for First Nations housing. And in particular, through the Housing Managers program at Vancouver Island University. So exactly what you're going to hear more about from Nancy and Sylvia. So I'll keep my remarks so I don't eat into their time, but our intention is to continue to support this work moving forward, and I'm happy to, I'll stick around for the webinar. I'm happy to answer questions at the end, or feel free to send me an email and maybe we can share my contact address at the end. So thanks very much, and I'll turn it back to Elena.
Thank you so much, Amy. So we're really fortunate to have our two speakers today. Nancy Hamilton is an administrative coordinator with VIU and is the program manager for the First Nations Housing Manager Certificate Program. She is also the project coordinator for the Energy Efficiency module currently in development. Nancy has spent the last 8 years moving the First Nations Housing Manager Certificate Program forward, one course at a time, and now moving from a classroom delivery format into an online delivery format. She credits the success for the project to all the dedicated partners and content matter experts who help to keep the vision alive, which is to have a quality, relevant, and accessible First Nations Housing Manager Certificate Program. Our second speaker, Sylvia Olsen, has been working in the field of on-reserve housing for several decades. Her career, her dedication, and her passion are to make sure everyone has a healthy place to live. Sylvia's work in education over the last 20+ years has enabled and driven her to become a content expert locally and nationally on First Nations housing. She is the primary instructor for the VIU First Nations Housing Manager Certificate and teaches the students with a compassion for the work of housing managers and a humility for those in the field who come to learn with her. So at this time, I'm going to switch over our presentation controls to Nancy and Sylvia. You can bear with us for a few moments.
Are we visual now, Ilana?
Yes, you are.
Oh, fabulous. So welcome and thank you all for joining us. It's Nancy speaking. Sylvia and I will be taking turns as we walk through our presentation today. And just wanted to let you know that we are very excited right now to be working on this energy efficiency module with support from the Ministry of Energy and Mines and BC Hydro. This module is part of the larger project that we have been working on and that we have moved through our university, which is now adopted through Curriculum Committee as a certificate program, and it's being delivered nationally. And I need to acknowledge that the development of that project had many different funding partners as we were going through, like not only VIU, but we had CMHC early on. We also had our online project development fund dollars were in there, and also funding through Aboriginal Special Project Fund. And that different teams of funding would sort of jump in over the years to help create the certificate that we have today. And Sylvia is just going to give a little bit of a background or just on the certificate, and then we will move into the exciting new one that we're working on the energy efficiency. Sylvia here.
I've been with this course since the beginning, and I think that's the early 2000s, about 2003. And like Nancy said, it's been through numbers of different iterations. It started in my work with it started with the First Nations housing managers, which is now no longer with us, but this was our key project to get this off the ground. And like Nancy said, CMHC was a large part of it in those days. But in truth, this project is where it is today because Vancouver Island University championed it, and Nancy was the person here. But it has kept this running, and it's kept the vision alive. And we started with some face-to-face pilots in about 2007, and we finally got our first cohort running through in 2014, 15? Yeah. 15. So it takes a long time, but here we are. Just a couple of thoughts about our intention here. So as I'm an ex-housing manager from a way back, and we are generally as housing managers trained through workshops, and that's a spotty way of approaching our careers. And the thinking behind this was we need a more comprehensive educational approach to it. Workshops can supplement this, but this creates the bigger picture for housing managers. This is the place housing managers can come when they really want to understand the full extent of their job, and so that the individual workshops or skills can fit into the bigger picture. So that's what this is about. Nancy's going to just walk you through some of the courses as they are now, and we think that it's pretty comprehensive, although we are adding to it and adapting it as we go along and as we get evaluation back from the students. The really wonderful part of this right now that's coming up is that this course has students from right across the country. So I think that's an important part of it that we need to keep in mind.
So the 6 courses that comprise our certificate are on the screen now. The first 4 of them, the Introduction to Housing Management, the Construction and Renovations, and the Housing Administration Level 1 and 2, those were originally developed as the face-to-face courses, and we have now moved them to online. Originally, the whole suite of courses was going to be face-to-face, but we found when we were writing our funding for our last 2 courses, the Financial Management and Interpersonal Communication course, we were offered online funding. So it was at that point, plus taking a look at a lot of the questions from our different communities who wanted to participate, access was an issue. We needed to find a way to be able to get the content out to the students where the students were, because they couldn't afford to leave, you know, their jobs or communities to be able to partake in the content. So it was at that point that we chose to do the 2 final courses online, and then we went back to the beginning and started moving the first 4 courses into our online format. What that looks like later on. And then what was came from that was this new initiative. We were approached by Leah from the Ministry of Energy and Mines, and we acknowledge their support, and BC Hydro, for this current module, which is going to be offered as a standalone module on energy efficiency. But we are going to move it in tandem with our Housing Manager Certificate program. What you're seeing on the screen now is sort of how we came to what we call our module blueprint, which is what we started with when we do our course development. We were presented with a series of PowerPoints and content that had been developed, and we were to move it into an online environment and enhance it for that online learning. And Sylvia will walk you a bit through that.
From the front line point of view, we have two issues. Well, we have a lot more than 2 issues, but we have 2 issues as housing managers, and we're all faced with them. To pay the rent or to pay the heat. the heating bills. And we have a lot of us struggle for a lot of our clients, especially SA clients, on how to pay both. So, so we had two driving reasons to get in this course, and that's one of them, to add this to our course, and that's one of them, was this dilemma that we have. The other reason for thinking this course is important to our project is that we are all becoming much more aware of our energy consumption, to reduce our energy consumption, both in construction and at the housing level for our occupants. So these are the two really important things for housing managers that are out there, and you'll know both of these are drivers that create this need to become much more aware about energy efficiency. So, so like Nancy said, I'm like really excited that we are going to be able to, that these partners that Nancy talked about helped create this module. We will we'll adapt it, we'll amend it, and we'll make it work for our courses. But we're really excited that we finally have a piece that we can put in that really addresses energy efficiency. So what this course does, and it's directed at housing managers, but we are really happy if consultants or government people take it so that they can suggest it to the First Nations, because we think it's really going to be an important piece for housing managers. So like you can see on the screen, my talking notes, that the content has basically 3 pillars, and to create energy efficiency focused housing departments. I think that's our goal. And we're moving bit by bit, but this is a comprehensive look at it. So we are looking at developing housing policies that address energy efficiency issues. We are looking at, the course looks at adopting energy efficiency construction practices. We all know that the construction industry is a huge consumer of energy. And, then the third important piece is to create awareness and to educate occupants. I mean, we start right back with that a lot of people, including me, don't know how to read our energy bills. So those 3 pillars are covered in this course. So we're going to talk a little bit about online versus face-to-face, and I was somebody who really resisted online, thinking that you really only could talk back and forth, but in truth, it's not the way it is, and this course is not at all just a sort of a talking head kind of thing and hypothetical. There's lots of hands-on exercises and lots of templates to actually get the students to create their work plans. Participants, this will follow the way that we do the courses up till now. So participants work on their own and create their own work plans. And this says we're going to explore funding opportunities. I think with this one, funding opportunities all often takes our minds to writing proposals for funds, but I think this is more about funding strategies, because I think a lot of this work can be done in our First Nations without writing any proposals. So participants are going to draft their own energy efficiency strategies, and they're also going to draft their own community awareness initiative, which is really important. So when the students are finished this, they're going to have a plan on how to take this material and take it to their community. The process for has been amazing online, because the students work on their own project. They amend it with the help of their fellow students, and there's a lot of lateral learning going on there. This course provides lots of useful tools, and these tools were developed by with the help of some of these partners that Nancy talked about. There's lots of resources they can download and materials they can take away. I have found these courses incredibly interactive, and the students that we've had so far do too. Like I said before, we have students from across the country, so it's pretty exciting for students to get to work together that way. One note on this this across the country piece. This course has been developed around BC's particular conditions, and Nancy and I will be working on adapting the course so that the particular resources that we have are relevant to all the provinces. So we're able to amend that and adapt that. We'll be using, right now we have examples mostly from BC, and we'll be bringing in examples from across the country as well.
So this is Nancy again. Just giving you a look, what the look and feel is of, we call it D2L, and this is our online learning management system that we use at VIU. Originally, some of our courses were developed in Moodle, but we found through an institution that D2L was more favorable institutionally. So D2L is Desire to Learn, and this is what a typical screen would look like if you registered in our course. Once you've registered and you've created your student profile, you would have access to a screen like this. So this is the start. It's not the finish of our energy efficiency module, but if you were at our first screen, and you can take a look here where if you had clicked on this content tab, this would show you the first piece. And you can see here there is the lineup, the awareness tab. And with this, it shows you all the different sections that are within this module. And you can track your progress through this module. There's little check marks and different things that watches your progress. Also, in the second tab here where it says Assessment and Evaluation, this is where you could click in and you can upload your assignments or activities you're working on. You can also take a look at your own progress as you're going through it. The Communication tab here, this is where you would be able to access discussion forums with your student peers or with your instructor. And we're in the instructor mode right now. That's why you see the course materials and the instructor tools. In the student mode, you wouldn't see those, but this is just set up for my view right now. Also, you'll see embedded within here, you'll see where it says Success Videos. We have different videos, which I'll show you on the next screen. But before we go to that, we have one other screen which we found we needed to add into the D2L, which gets embedded just before our course introduction. It's called a VIU Learn Orientation module. We found that our students needed to have a bit of activity around learning how to use the online environment.
So in truth, there's probably some housing managers looking at this and saying this is not how I want to learn. And you and me would share that feeling because this was not how I want to learn. So there have been many of the students that have signed up that have looked at this and had initial difficulty with it. But there has been nobody who hasn't got a real strong hang of it really quite quickly. And if there's anybody, probably the person who was the last to really feel comfortable with this was me. So I was an anti-online learner until this course, and honestly, I am now a booster. So it's much easier, and than it appears, if it does appear to you to be difficult.
So the module that we developed from that awareness that Sylvia is talking about fits in here just before the introduction. And in that we take students through just navigating within D2L, how to complete their course activities, discussions, Dropbox, quizzes, access, how to communicate. We also show them how to view their progress and how to use the different tools so they can set up to manage their online learning. They can set up their calendar so it can be diarized when their discussions have to be done. They can set up notifications so they know when the instructor has graded anything, any other exercises, or somebody has emailed them. And also it shows them the calendar that Sylvia sets up for the students when learning should be coordinated. This next screen just shows you, we haven't got it streaming live, but what we're showing you is just the video from Skidegate, and this, oh, sorry. This is a video that we embed with our course so that students can go through this. And then there's interactions with the students and the instructor around, discussions. They can pose questions with it. And we've got a number of these different case studies and videos that are interactive throughout the course. Yep.
So we have learned a lot through this process of getting to here. This next course on energy efficiency is going to be the beneficiary of this learning. As you can tell, Nancy's all committed to online learning, and I'm actually a new convert to online learning. There's some strengths and weaknesses. This particular course is going to be offered to not just the people who are in our course, but to the general public as well. And it's going to be an easy access, like Nancy said. It's not nearly as hard as what I had initially imagined it would be. From a facilitator's point of view, I have found myself, instructor doesn't work so much. That's not a word I think of as myself as being. A facilitator, yes, I facilitate learning. I'm a coach, often a coach to the students in class, and as much as anything, I'm a mentor. So this method of learning creates an interesting place for the facilitator and a useful place. It's about relationships, isn't it? So we have the peer-to-peer relationship being developed in these courses. We have an instructor-student relationship being developed in this course, and the student, of course, has to develop a relationship with the content. And from what I can see, and from our evaluations that we've had coming back, this is working. And as we've got here on line, the other thing that's really good about this kind of learning is that the course can always be in design mode. As you can see here, we're launching this very cool new piece, and it's just a case of putting it in. It's a really easy kind of curriculum design to keep working on and to keep alive.
Mm-hmm. So with this module, just so everybody knows where we're in the process of just finally ending our content development and getting all our videos embedded and getting it ready for pilot. The pilot of the module will be in the end of June, and it's going to be piloted to our current First Nations Housing Manager students. With feedback from them and our funding partners, we will then get our final version ready, and the actual module is going to be offered later this fall and again early in spring. And this course is the energy efficiency module is going to be free of charge to those through our funding with the Ministry of Energy and Mines. And if you're interested in participating in the course, it's just right now we've got our interest list started and it's growing. And you just go to the CCS Cowichan at viu.ca, and our training assistant will get you connected and get you signed up for the interest list. And if you're interested in the full Housing Manager program, we have another cohort of students that are starting on that with the Introduction to Housing Management, and that course is starting on May 30th. And you can do the same email to indicate your interest, and we would get you connected with the information needed for that as well. So we are really excited that we were able to walk you through a little snapshot of what our program is, the certificate program, and most excitedly with the energy efficiency module. So I'm going to turn our screen back over to the Fraser Basin Council to wrap up our webinar or answer any questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Nancy and Sylvia, for your overview of the energy efficiency module. So before we get started in our Q&A session, I just wanted to share another poll to get a sense of how many people in the audience have already received training in energy efficiency. So if you can take a minute to respond to this poll. So thank you for your input. It looks like a good majority has attended related workshops or seminars on energy efficiency. 33% have not received any training, and there's a few who've received some hands-on training, and no one responded that they've taken an energy efficiency course. So it's great that we're all here to listen to this presentation. Oh, I have a question from Gail Andrews about the cost of this program, but I understand from Nancy, your last comment, that it will be free of charge.
The energy efficiency module will be free of charge. There is a fee for the housing manager module or certificate course, and those are just, each course is $1,095 for a 3-month program, and we cycle the courses one course at a time every 3 months.
Okay, and is there any financial support available for the housing manager certificate course in terms of scholarships?
We have seen a number of different sponsors come forward. The First Nation Housing Market Fund has been sponsoring some students. There's also been some individual bands of doing sponsorship. So there's a number of different avenues, CMHC as well.
Mm-hmm. And another question, what would be the expected time commitment for the energy efficiency module, and how would that compare to the full housing manager certificate course?
The energy efficiency module could be completed in probably 8 to 12 hours, depending on how computer savvy somebody is, and if somebody wants to sit at their computer and get so excited about our content, they're going to do it in an evening. But typically we allow, 8 to 12 hours, and it will be available over a 2-week period. So it wouldn't be like an extended, where our courses, each course for the housing manager program, each course we allow 3 months, so 12 weeks.
Okay, thank you. And I think in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned as part of the 3 pillars, looking at construction practices. Will renovation practices on energy efficiency be also another pillar for the course?
We include renovations and new construction in our construction approach to construction. Of course, yeah.
And it is addressed also in the energy efficiency module.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you mentioned that there's students from across Canada who will be participating in this course. Are there opportunities for discussion groups to focus within specific regions, or will it be, more comprehensive in your learning approach?
We don't at this point have discussion groups that are regional. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, as the facilitator, a tremendous more learning is taking place because we have this wide scope. Most of our students started out coming from BC, just because this is located in British Columbia. But as we get more popular across the country, that may be considered, but I would probably resist that until I found out that that was actually useful. I think right now the students are very excited to be talking to other students with different experiences. I think right now that's more of a learning bonus than regionalizing it the way that our course is set up.
Thank you. So as we have a question here on, does the course identify any region-specific issues in terms of energy efficiency? For example, the interior concerns versus North Coast concerns.
And that's where I said this course, the material for this course has been developed in British Columbia, and it lacks that regional emphasis. Never mind, just like that caller just said, even within British Columbia. But we have more work to do to make it regionally focused for sure, and attention, not only just within BC, but across the country. So that's one of the pieces that is going to be added to the course to improve it, so that we are already focused on that, but we haven't done that yet.
Okay, thank you. So as more people are thinking up questions, I have one last poll to send out to get a sense of the level of awareness of VIU's Housing Manager program before this webinar. So thank you everyone for your response. So we have a perfectly even split of people who were aware and not aware of the Housing Manager program. So it's great that we're spreading awareness of this available educational course. So another question that I'd like to raise is in your presentation, you had mentioned that the component looking at energy efficiency funding opportunities is not necessarily focused on proposals, but rather a broader funding strategy. Can you provide more detail on what that would look like for students?
You just pointed at me.
We're pointing at each other.
Well, and there's regional funding or funding opportunities or assistance opportunities across the country, and I'm not negating or ignoring that that's the case. But within the policy work, for instance, around including energy efficiency within your policy, or doing, as you said to begin with, whoever it was that said that Seabird Island has passed a bylaw or a policy or something within their chief and council to say that they are going to be an energy efficiency focused community, or at least in some way that's what they are saying. These sorts of things don't take proposals for funding. So funding opportunities this does not have to be driven by whether or not you have funding or you don't have funding. Educating the community, educating the band members or the housing occupants for effective use of energy doesn't cost money or require proposals. And certainly I've run a construction site on Sartla First Nation, my First Nation, for years, and creating a more energy conscious construction, be it renovations or new builds, also doesn't require any funding. It just requires changing the way you do your business. That's what I was trying to get at.
And part of the, the concept that we started with in our blueprint when we designed the course was working through the awareness piece and then getting the challenges identified and then moving into action. And that's where the funding conversation will tuck in there, is in the action when you're doing it. It's the actions like Sylvia's speaking about, which tie in bringing up community awareness, but there is also the funding opportunity discussions that will take place in the course.
Great. Well, thank you both Nancy and Sylvia for that comprehensive response. At this time, we have one more question from our audience. Gerard is asking about maybe a specific example of energy efficient construction practice.
Okay, so I mean, okay, there's a lot. First of all, what are you doing with your waste? The waste from construction sites, I don't have the numbers with me, but the amount of the percentage of our landfills that are filled with construction waste is enormous. So when I was building, I consciously decided that I was going to cut the waste down to a minimal. So that's one policy, is that every decision you make will be made with the idea that we are not going to create as much waste as we would have otherwise, just reducing waste. So there's one huge way that our construction on reserves can improve its energy efficiency, is by not using so much materials and not filling our land dumps with it. So while that might not sound like energy efficiency, it is in the sense that you're not using nearly as much product as you would have otherwise if you weren't really conscious of reducing waste and what you do with your waste. So that's one. Yeah, there's lots of others, but.
Okay, well, that's a great example. Thanks for sharing that. At this time, it looks like we don't have any more questions from the audience, so a good point to wrap up our webinar. Thank you so much, Nancy and Sylvia and Amy, for joining us here this morning and for sharing your experience with the module and for other BC Hydro projects, and to give our audience an overview of what to expect if they were to sign up for this course. Thank you for our audience for your questions and your participation. If you'd like to follow up with more questions or comments, you can send me, Elena Chia, an email at echia@fraserbasin.bc.ca, and if you go to our the Fraser Basin Council website, you can find our contact information on there. And as a heads up, our next webinar as part of the series will be on June 15th, and it will be looking at protecting your housing through the Homeowner Protection Office's Home Warranty Program. And feel free to get in touch if you have more questions about that, and keep an eye out for our next newsletter about this event. So thank you everyone for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.